We have breaking news. The Trump administration and ICE just announced a massive operation to detain thousands of refugees throughout the United States, which is sending a shockwave throughout the political establishment, where politicians like Ilhan Omar and other Democrats are having a meltdown. Welcome to the Immigration Report. If you want daily immigration updates without bias, with evidence, please consider subscribing. Let us get into it, starting with this video explaining this move by the Trump administration.
The Trump administration is expanding ICE's ability to detain legal refugees. According to a Department of Homeland Security memo obtained by CNN, the department is broadening the federal immigration authority's ability to detain legal refugees who have not yet obtained green cards. It also calls on immigration officers to arrest and detain refugees who have failed to adjust to lawful permanent residence status 1 year after being admitted to the U.S.
So the Trump administration and ICE, what they're saying is that for refugees, for the thousands of refugees that are in the country, if you're in the country for a while, for more than a year, and you haven't received your permanent residency or legal residency, then we're going to detain you and reevaluate if you should be in the country or not. And we have an article here that explains that the Trump administration is moving to arrest thousands of people already legally admitted to the U.S. as refugees and detain them indefinitely for aggressive rescreening, a report published on Thursday said. Under the new policy, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, said that federal immigration officers can and should arrest anyone who has not yet obtained the right to permanent residence, a so-called green card. And we have another article here that explains the three reasons why the Trump administration and ICE, they're making this move. The article explains that the agency leaders say that the new policy is needed to prevent immigration fraud, identify national security threats, and vet people for criminal history. And Ilhan Omar is having a meltdown over this because we know she's a former refugee. She came in the country as a refugee, and a majority, or not a majority, but a lot of her constituents there in Minnesota are Somali refugees, people that came in the country as refugees. Take a look at her response.
When Operation Paris was announced in January, we knew that USCIS would have a hard time finding fraud. Refugees are among the most vetted people in the entire world. People wait years, even decades, to get through the vetting process of the FBI, DHS, Defense Department, and multiple security agencies.
So two things. She mentioned Operation Paris. What Operation Paris is basically this thing that I just explained, where refugees are being detained in ICE custody, but it's only limited to Minnesota. And that was ground zero for this operation. Now, they had some success. ICE and the Trump administration, they had success in Minneapolis and Minnesota. Now they're moving it nationwide. The second thing that she mentioned is that refugees are some of the most rigorously checked people when it comes to a background check to enter the country. While I do not know this because I'm not out there doing all the investigations, we have a congressional hearing that seemed to contradict this statement by Ilhan Omar. During the hearing, a witness outlined that it is oftentimes very difficult to do background checks due to record keeping by the host nation. Take a look at this.
Based on your experience, how does it work when you don't fully vet individuals who are entering the United States? How can that?
Well, I think the idea of fully vetting is a bit of a myth, because if you have, say, an immigrant visa applicant from Germany where they have excellent records, they share them with us, and you have that person's identity and civil documents that are trustworthy, you can be pretty sure that person is who they say they are. If they don't have a record, they don't have a record. If you have an applicant from Somalia or from Mali or somewhere that has much worse records, then you're much less likely to have an accurate result. And in some countries that I've worked, you have people who have marriages that are testified to only by villagers who are illiterate. So they've maybe had a statement printed out for them that they've signed with a thumbprint. That's not really something you can rely on. And then often criminal records are in places like Afghanistan just simply aren't recorded. Everybody in the village knows, but unless you can go there to check, you have no way of knowing.
So when it comes to admitting anyone into the country, the records are very important. And if these nations, these countries don't really maintain records, then that make that process very difficult, and you won't be able to fairly audit that person before they come in the United States. And Ilhan Omar, she made another claim that refugees doesn't commit fraud. Take a look at this.
There is absolutely no reason for Trump to claim there is a rampant fraud in the refugee system, because we know this isn't about fraud. This is about targeting people from black and brown countries simply because Stephen Miller doesn't want us here.
So Ilhan Omar, she claimed that there's no fraud in the refugee program. But Caroline Levitt, she kind of seems to disagree with that. And we have a press briefing that was done a little while back where she outlined that a lot of people who claim to be refugees, claim to fleeing political persecutions, they actually lie about it. Take a look.
I'll tell you what does not add to our nation's character and integrity is refugees who come here under the alleged plight of asylum and fleeing persecution, and then come to the United States to abuse our system and rip off American taxpayers. And as I pointed out, the New York Times, to their credit, it was about 6 months too late, but they did write about how Somali immigrants in Minnesota have been ripping off American taxpayers. In fact, 86 people have been charged in a rampant and widespread fraud scheme spanning multiple programs in Minnesota. Of those 86, 78 of those people are Somali, 91% of them charged. So far, 59 of those people have been convicted for their roles in fraud plots that have stolen $1 billion from taxpayers.
So what she just stated, the press secretary, she said a lot of refugees who comes in the country, they come under the plight, under the pretense of fleeing political persecution. Then they end up in the country, and what they proceed to do, and she pointed to the Somali community, is that they end up ripping off the American taxpayers. And we even have another video of the fraud that was uncovered in the Twin Cities. Not just regarding ripping off the taxpayers, but actual immigration fraud. Take a look.
Our officers encountered blatant marriage fraud, visa overstays, people claiming to work at businesses that can't be found, forged documents, abuse of the H-1B visa system, abuse of the F-1 visas, and many other discrepancies.
Federal officers, including ICE, say in the Twin Cities they found 275 cases of alleged fraud, noncompliance, or public safety concerns involving immigration cases during this operation that ran from September 19th through the 28th.
So to be fair, when I was doing the research for this video, I didn't find any tangible fraud in regards to the refugee program. But when it comes to every other aspect of the immigration system, whether it's the visa system, H-1B visa system, seeking asylum, there's tremendous fraud there, which is why I think a lot of people are saying it's fair for the Trump administration to do this. Because remember, the Trump administration and ICE, they're given 3 reasons why they're implementing this policy. Reason number 1 is to reevaluate, re-review to see if there's any fraud there. The second reason is for national security, which I think is the most important reason. And we have examples where refugees came into the country, they were in the country, and then they turned out to be a national security risk. Take a look at this reminder.
Do start with some breaking news tonight. President Donald Trump now saying one of the 2 National Guard members shot outside a Washington, D.C. metro station yesterday has now died. Trump saying 21-year-old West Virginia National Guard member Sarah Beckstrom passed away from wounds suffered in that attack. 24-year-old Andrew Wolf was also hurt. FBI officials say they are now investigating the shooting as an act of terrorism. Officials say the suspected shooter is an Afghan national that came to the U.S. in 2021 and was granted asylum earlier this year. They say he drove across the country from his home in Washington state to carry out this shooting. He is now facing several charges.
So if you don't remember this guy, he came in under Operation Allies Welcome. Because if you don't remember, under the Biden administration, we withdrew from Afghanistan. And what the Biden administration did, they rushed a lot of refugees in to the country, which a lot of people said they didn't properly vet these people. And this guy, he was in Washington state, drove across state lines, drove to Washington, D.C., and targeted 2 of her heroes, 2 National Guard members. Unfortunately, one of them ended up dying, which is pretty unfortunate. So this is one of the reasons why the Trump administration is giving, saying, hey, we don't know who came into our country. We don't know if they pose as a national security risk. Instead of waiting for another event like this, we should go ahead and detain them, reevaluate them, make sure they're not a national security risk. Then we can release them back into the communities Because remember, this is not every refugee that's coming into the country. What the Trump administration is saying is that, hey, if you have been in the country for more than a year, if we brought you in as a refugee, because it takes a year for their cases to be heard, for them to go through the process to see if they're a threat or anything like that. And refugees that's been in the country for 5, 10, 15, 20 years without getting their paperwork, without getting their legal citizenship, or not citizenship, but their legal residency, then that is a concern. That is why the Trump administration is doing this. And the third reason that they gave for doing this is for criminal ties, criminal history within their country that they came from, and criminal history within the U.S. as well. Those are the three reasons the Trump administration has given for this policy. And let me know in the comments below what you think, if you agree with this or you disagree with it. Let me know if the Trump administration should go ahead and detain these individuals, or should he let the process play out? And that brings us to the end of today's immigration report. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Also, if you don't mind liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Thank you.